Welcome to the Silvan Australia podcast, where we talk everything rural lifestyle. Welcome to another episode of the Silvan Australia podcast, and on this episode we're joined by Cam Sutherland. Cam, thanks for joining us.
No, pleasure to be here.
Now Cam, for those that are listening to us, I mean, you have a decorated record in turf in particular Western Australia, and we'll cover a bit about what you've done, but tell us, from growing up on the Broadacre farm in Wickerpin, how did you get involved to where you are now in the turf industry?
I suppose just from, like most people growing up in the country, love of sport, and for me, I suppose more specifically cricket and I suppose football were the two, but when we finished school, it was going to play cricket in Perth, and then basically I had stress fractures of the back through a number of reasons, but couldn't play cricket one year and got into basically cricket wickets, and I was studying horticulture at the time, and so went to the turf management side from there.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, you went all the way to the WACA basically, and talk us through some of the experiences that you had at the WACA, and and your excellent preparation of the wicket here in WA.
Yes, well, I suppose when I got there in 2005, they were having some issues with the WACA around its pace and bounce, and I always remember one of the questions in my interview for the position was, why do we think it's not what it was renowned for, and what would you do? So I remember answering that in a simple way around the soil structure had changed, and that had led to the, I suppose, the vitality and the ability of the characteristics of the WACA to not be there. So, and I always remember once I answered that the people, the CEO and the others that were in the interview panel kind of looked out over the ground and raise their eyebrows. So I thought they either agree with it or they don't. So luckily, I suppose they agreed with it in some way, shape or form, because I got the role, and also then one of the key things was why were we not having success in probably having a traditional WACA wicket, and some of my early wickets just weren't I suppose traditional WACA wickets, in that they were quite flat and sides for making 500 in shield games, and so we did a lot of research around the soil properties and the going back to the, I suppose, 40, 50, even 60 years previously, around what made it, what were the really good times at the WACA and what was the unique soil characteristic. And through an association with the Chemistry Centre, we were able to track soil tests from the same testing parameters, and therefore be able to match the clay soil to those eras and decades, and see what was working, what wasn't, and even through when they rebuilt in the 1980s and had a lot of cracking problems, what was the issue with the soil that made it crack and basically become unmanageable. So and therefore, we obviously presented to the board and got the okay to reconstruct the block, so which we did over the 3 seasons. And it's one of those things that you probably don't get a lot of opportunity to do, but I can say I rebuilt basically the WACA, and I think 2010 was really the first one on the new one, which was an Ashes test, and Mitchell Johnson and Ryan Harris ran through England twice, and it was the only game Australia won on that series, I think. So, which just proved that we were, we were on the right track. We had successful series after that as well. So it was, had its challenges, but we got there.
But that involved sourcing clay from a remote area in Western Australia, wasn't it, as well? That was part of it.
Yes, well, the wicket soils comes from West Waroona on the Harvey River, so it's almost where the old highway meets the new inland road of the Forest Highway, I think it's called.
Yep.
So, and on the banks of the Harvey River, well, I don't know how long ago, but probably millions of years ago, when they used to flood basically, and the sediment packed down of those plains created the unique clays, and the better clays are realistically at the bends of the river where it had more, I suppose, overflow in the sharp bends, and it allowed for that more packing of the sediment and then to turn into the silt and the clay properties. So we did a lot of research down there and spent a lot of time out in paddocks analysing, because there's a lot of properties that need to marry up, because you're trying to grow grass in a really, something that's like concrete really when it's prepared, but also then how do you keep the grass alive? And the cracking actually allows air and water to go back, and then it swells like a sponge basically, and basically it's a self-regenerating soil. So it's, but to get it, all the physical and chemical properties to align to that, there's probably 10 things we had to look at to get the soil that we really wanted. And where we got it from initially was back from where they got it from in the 1970s, 60s, and we took the last out of what was a bushland reserve. So we were lucky we were able to get permission to do that. Yeah.
One of the things that I don't know a lot about cricket myself, but I know that when there is a Test match or an Ashes series or even Sheffield Shield in town, the world media certainly focuses on that particular match and the preparation of the wicket. Did you feel that pressure and that stress that came with like the world's eyes looking down at the WACA?
Yeah, absolutely you do. It's the WACA grounds, probably if you go there, it's one of probably the poorer grounds for facilities. You're out in the sun. There's a lot of temporary facilities. It's but everyone loves the mystique, I suppose, of the WACA because of the 22 yards in the middle. I remember one Indian Test series. I think I did 31 interviews leading up into the game, and know that. But ESPN Star wanted to go down where we got the soil to just feature article on it. Everyone's just so. What's the word I'm looking for? Everyone's just so blown away by, I suppose, the WACA and its uniqueness and how do we get that. But if you get it wrong, which I have in Test matches and Shield matches, it's a long 5 days to sit there when you haven't got it right and it's not playing the way, because you can't change it, and you've got to front up day after day for the 5 days thinking this isn't playing as well as I wanted to. And that happened initially for me, and that was just the real driver into trying to get it right. And I would rather, and this is what I always said, if I walk out the gates or get walked out of the gates, then I would rather have doing it my way and finding the uniqueness and trying to get things the way I wanted them to. So there's always pressure. I mean, before the first ball of a Test match, you were always very much on edge, and you had a lot of media commitments, but you just really, the more you do, the more settled you get. But certainly it is pressure.
Do you think that's come away in recent years? Because I've noticed we don't seem to focus too much on the Curator. Well, it might be just my perception, but it feels like the Curator isn't as under much scrutiny in recent years.
Yes, you're probably right. It's you certainly probably don't get the media that you're used to. It's more probably gone back to the players and for a while there was a lot of talk about cricket and wickets and the Curator's role, and so it's good that it's gone back to just the player. It doesn't matter what you're presented with, it's the same for both sides. And just go out and play. And if it, even for a while there, if the pitch deteriorated, it was like, the Curator hasn't done his job. But now they just say if it deteriorates, that's great. It makes it more exciting if it's going up and down. So you're probably right there. Yeah.
One of the things I'm really curious to know is you moved over to horse racing. What could you bring with you from your cricket experiences and the turf? What could you take over to like Ascot and Belmont that were, because when I look at those two sports, I can't see too many parallels where the preparation of the grounds would be similar. But correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're not too far wrong, but it's still around what are you trying to produce. So you've still got to look at it from an athlete's perspective. So the athlete just happens to be a horse. Now that horse, if it's going 60 kilometres an hour, which probably is up the straight, each hoof, I suppose, as it touches the ground, probably has about 2 tonne of down pressure on it through that. Through the hoof, and so it has a tremendous shock, I suppose, up through the body of the horse. So it's no different to an athlete, that whether it be a footballer or a cricketer or anyone else that needs that shock absorption. So how you manage the grass, the cushioning, the aeration process of the soil structure, still gives you the results you're after. Now, I probably ran Ascot and Belmont shorter than previously, but I was after grass density, not length. Now, everyone in the horse racing loves length, but if the horse is putting that much down pressure through the grass, it just goes through the grass if it's long and just parts it and basically gets straight in the soil and kicks it out. Where I was looking at really tight, dense grass that would, A, prevent the wearing of the track, but also that cushioning a bit for the horse, so it would push that grass into the soil and give it a bit of rebound. So, and then we also had a really vigorous aeration program where every 3 weeks we'd aerate, and we used 3 different machines at different depths, which gave different. Some gave surface aeration, some gave real subsurface aeration deep down, because Ascot can get very hard as a racetrack, and then in winter Belmont's used for winter racing, and that drains very well, apart from when it's raced on continuously compact. So it's just that knowledge of soils and having that ability to adapt. So, a lot of people didn't like what I did at the races, but we did a lot of work on the subsurface drainage. We did a lot of work on opening the tracks up, and I think one Kingston Town or Railway Stakes day we were on a heavy 8 after 20 mils. Then I think we had the following year, I think we had about 60 mils, and we were on a soft 6. So the result was there, that the work we were doing and taking all the organic matter off the top, and we did a lot of construction work. And one year we fell a bit short of having the track ready, but we were taking major works into winter period, because that's the only time we had. And the results the following years were there to see. So sometimes you just got to do the work because of what you want. And it's no different to the WACA. We replaced the wicket block because we wanted an outcome, and the same as at racing, we wanted an outcome which was better for racing. Now there's a bit of pain getting there, as there was with the WACA, but and some of it came after I left, where they had really good results, and that's what I said to them when I left. It's just like, you're going to see some really good tracks, and that's happened. They've had really good racetracks. So, but it was a result of removing all the top of the surface and starting a bit of that again, but also putting the drainage in underneath.
One of the things I'm really interested in, and I sat in a 2.5 hour talk when they initiated the Optus Stadium and they started talking about the turf. You were heavily involved in the writing of that spec for the state government at the time for Optus Stadium. So can you talk us a bit through that? Because that is a lot of interest to many of our listeners, no doubt.
Yes, I was lucky to probably be in the right place at the right time with the WACA, and obviously WACA was a stakeholder of the new stadium, or going to be at the time. We're probably going back to 2010, somewhere as a fair while. So I was lucky enough that the CEO at the time, Graham Wood, was like, I want you to to go to all the stakeholder meetings and represent the WACA. So it wasn't just about the turf, it was about the design of the bowl, the seating, so do you have, if you're going down Nile, do you have A to K on your left and L to Z on your right, or is it better just to have the whole, which is the best for crowd movements? And they get experts in, and it's really interesting. So as a learning perspective, it was really valuable for me. Some of the people that sat on those committees were from all around the world, and ran Super Bowls and FA Cups, and were really sharp about how to design stadiums and for crowd enjoyment and crowd movement, facilities like food and beverage and toilets, and not even being away from the action. So even if you go to the toilet, there's a screen there, so you're not missing any of the action. And then obviously my expertise was around the playing surface side. So even though the government wanted to, the 3 consortiums that bid for the rights to build, they wanted them to have their natural input and flair and into the design, and we still had to have some broad parameters around what were necessities around the stadium as far as from a playing surface. So, yeah, I wrote the tender specifications for that. So I had about 50 odd pages of documentation around, pretty structured in the sports industry, around particle size, drainage requirements, sprinkler design, etc., cricket portable wickets. And luckily enough, once they came in, I'd just left the WACA, and so I was employed by the government full time to do the review of all the 3 consortium bids that had come in, and my brief was specifically around the playing surface, the portable wickets, the shade impacts from the stands, and the wind movements through the bowl, through the tunnels and the vomitories, I suppose. And yeah, once again, really exciting to be able to do that, to be involved in once in a lifetime opportunity that Perth hasn't had a new stadium basically for a long time. So to be involved in that and the process around it, and to be reviewing, and then once the build started, to make sure that the build was meeting the specifications, any modifications were going to be in the best interest of the playing surface was really exciting. And once again, even though I was on the government side working and being in meetings with probably world-leading architects, engineers, people that had been around stadium builds and design most of their life, it was really good. It was challenging me around my thought process and will this work? What's their flaws? So I was actually trying to make sure the government got the best they had. And the surfaces had some hardness issues for football, or perceived hardness issues. But apart from that, most new stadiums have some form of issue. But it's been an outstanding success, and I think anyone that's been to the new stadium, just is blown away by how good it is as a venue, and how it can hold an event, and the atmosphere it creates, and how close you are to the action. And that's obviously with architects and engineering designs, but it was a difficult build because the land that was building on was not unstable, but it's old, basically riverbed or river floodplain, and so to build it has been just an architectural marvel, really, what they can do these days, and how they had to, all the pre-prep work around the drainage and all that. So it was,
I seem to remember there was also a motocross event there not that long ago, and the day after or 2 days later, maybe even 5 days, we had a football match there, and it was, you couldn't tell that motorbikes had been, obviously there was preparation in assisting that the turf wasn't contaminated, but you still couldn't tell, even from a compaction point of view, that motocross bikes had been running across the surface only a few days prior. So it really is a glowing endorsement of the work that everyone put in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Events are I was at the WACA when we used to have concerts there, so I think the last concert we had was In Excess Simple Minds, and that was on a Saturday night, and the stage was over the block a bit, and there's everyone on the outfield and in the stands. Then the following Saturday or Friday, I think we had a one-day against Sri Lanka, which was Adam Gilchrist's last ODI for Australia at the WACA. So the stage, I think, was fully pulled down on the Tuesday. It gave us 3 days to basically turn it around to a cricket ODI. Yeah. So, it does challenge you. It's all around how you manage the wear and what your foundation is, so you're protecting the grass underneath. So there's some really, it's an industry in itself, having all the boards and the protection flooring. Yeah.
Speaking about protecting surfaces, I think one of the biggest challenges that I see as a parent of children that play sports is local grassroots sport. I mean, the level that we're seeing, the demand on grounds now, and with the uptake of more kids doing different sports, we're seeing grounds being used for multiple purposes. I mean, what are some of the practices that the local councils, or even yourselves as contractors, can do in I know the Shire have rules such as feet on ground, or a term that they use as feet on ground, but how can like contractors in the Shire sort of turn the ground around in a short period of time so that we can accommodate all these children playing sports these days?
Yes, well, it's one of the issues, and it doesn't matter where you're from in Australia, because density living is only going to go one way, and that's upwards. So you certainly see it along the western suburbs, probably more so, where there's, even if you had a big block, it's now 3 or 4 townhouses or little smaller blocks with a house on it. And so that's putting pressure on ground resources. And once again, it's one of the things, we do a lot of work with local government, with TurfcareWA, where I'm at now. And we're heavily involved in working with local government around putting in specific programs to manage where local governments had a lot of time where they've just had wear and just go, we'll just replace the goal mouths and we'll just re-turf. But that turf never really establishes or has the time to establish, and the root systems just rip out at the start of the next winter especially. So for us, it's around how are we managing programs, and when are we putting in inputs, whether it be aeration to relieve the soil, get the roots down. We're doing a lot of work at the moment with wetting agents, obviously is a big one. Local governments with water restrictions and bore licensing and bore water restrictions. They've come on board with the use of really good wetting agents to limit their water usage, but also to store nutrient in the soil and down in the root zone where it's really good, rather than in the canopy. So if we can get water from the canopy down the root zone and try and get the roots to drag down and follow that water. And that's the key, is doesn't matter if you're growing a crop or sports turf, it's the anchoring of the plant and the ability of the plant to capture a lot of water volume and nutrient at different depths. So that if you have a soil where you water and it goes through past the root zone, well, you just can't access that water. So it's we do a lot of aeration work. We also do a lot of spraying of Primo, which is a growth regulator. So just slows cell elongation through the, slowing the gibberellic acid content in the plant. And that allows not so much upright growth, but horizontal growth for density. So once again, it gets a harder wearing or better wearing turf canopy, I suppose. And so we're also looking at controlled release fertilisers that don't volatilise or leach through the soil profile as well. So 6 to 8 weeks of really good slow release or controlled release uptake in the plant. So we're looking at a model for our business where we're looking at a more premium product, but being able to use it in a council environment where funds are limited. So how do we bring all those together? And we've done a lot of work in that, and that's one of the things we've prided ourselves on, is we're not going to the cheaper product. We're still trying to get that into a premium product in a council. But rather than re-turfing, you're putting your money into the nutrition and into the aeration and the things that really create a sustainable. And that's no different to agriculture. The sustainability is what it's all about nowadays, because we're really in an arid climate.
No, definitely. Well, Cam, tell us a bit these days. You just mentioned them there, TurfcareWA. I mean, how wide and varied is your work these days? I mean, you used to focus on one particular ground or a race course, but these days you're the sort of myriad of work that you guys would be doing would be pretty vast and wide. Can you tell us a bit about the sort of work that TurfcareWA does? Yeah,
so we've expanded exponentially, I suppose, in the last 4 years. Probably had fourfold growth, so which sounds really good, but it's really created an environment of where we've had to be really disciplined in how we manage cash flow on that, because of our expansion's been so rapid. But we've gone, I suppose it started off as mainly tennis clubs, and that when the business owner Michael's father ran it through to an expansion into oval renovations, then into spraying in the winter time to give really a 12-month cycle of work for all the employees rather than a boom and bust scenario of a lot of work in winter, but nothing. A lot of work in summer, not in winter.
Yeah.
And then, I suppose 3 years ago, we looked at facilities and can we manage facilities. We're doing it a bit with tennis clubs. So we were lucky enough to win some golf course contracts, the University of Western Australia, some cricket grounds, some waffle football grounds. And so we just expanded on the back of, I think, recruiting some really good turf managers and having a really good profile of trying to do things the right way. So we look after 15 local governments as far as tenders for spraying, renovation, mowing works, all the turf maintenance side of it. We've got contracts, as I said, for total staff and machinery at golf courses and university campuses and tennis clubs and cricket grounds. And we also do some consultancy work, some construction work around whether it be golf greens, bowling greens, some ovals.
Yeah.
So we're really diverse, and it's really good in a way, but it's really hard to manage staff who could be anywhere from Yanchep to Mandurah at any one time. We also do over 200 schools for the Department of Education, mowing and maintaining those. So we've grown really big, but it's for me, I'm in the office as general manager nowadays, and really all encompassing around basically every aspect of the business, from strategic planning through to HR, risk, safety, programming, operational. So it is different. It's certainly slightly different. It's probably the role evolved. When I was at the racecourse, I went from general manager of tracks to general manager of racecourse and facilities. So I did take on all that facilities, and I had a couple of hundred people under me on race day there. So I kind of expanded into those general managers' roles from a turf manager. So this was just another natural progression of a role of running basically a business in conjunction with the owner.
It certainly sounds very exciting. And one of the things that I saw on the website, actually, forgive me if I pronounce this wrong, but the KickX Method. So it's basically a steam and boiling water to treat weeds. Can you talk us through a bit of this? Because I'm seeing, I think a lot of the local government authorities these days are asking for alternate ways into the removal of weeds. So can you talk us through this machine that I saw on your website there?
Yes, it's our new machine. So we've just taken control of two. One's a walk behind and basically does small areas, and one's a ride-on machine. And the main point of difference, I suppose, with the steam weed controllers is this is more based on boiling water. The steam is there, but it's really an effect of the boiling water coming off the vaporisation of that. So, and the methodology is slightly different to steam. Steam would work and basically just burn, I suppose, the canopy of the plant, whereas the boiling water, and it's under the machine's got a big cover on it, so it basically penetrates in and burns the roots as well with the water. So it's we saw it as a really niche market, but as a market that was only going to increase. So we went out on a bit of a limb doing it, in the fact that a lot of local government aren't really sold on it, but they know that it's coming because the glyphosate debate, and being a farmer, I'm not going to get into that because I understand the glyphosate. But for us as local government contractors, and the amount of debate around glyphosate, but the amount of debate around any chemical, we spray, whether it be wetting agent, foliar, fertiliser or chemical, over 4,000 hectares in around Perth a year. So we're constantly spraying. Now, our spray operators have noticed the amount of scrutiny, even sometimes abuse, that residents give, filming of this, and the compliance we have to do around spraying just twofolds each year around report writing and signage, and so there's a lot of nervousness through, I suppose, lack of information for the public as much as anything, but they see chemical as the enemy. Most people have probably got a bottle of Roundup in their shed and they still kind of don't understand our role. But for us to go into the KickX, we think it's not going to be for every area council, but where you've got high density or shopping centres, or, for example, we're doing some at the City of Perth where they just cannot get in and do spraying unless it's we do some of their spraying, it's the middle of the night, so from 11 p.m. till 2 a.m. scenario. But then to get staff to do that, and to have staff that feel safe in those times as well, whereas we can do steam or boiling water treatment in the middle of the day because people can walk straight past and there's no danger to the pedestrian. So from an environmental message for these councils as well, they're seeing it as actual positive for their ratepayers that they're actually doing it. So that was why we went into it, and we see it as an opportunity, and we have to evolve our business. So we're not against chemicals, and we spray as much as anyone in the Perth metro area. We do it really safely. We've got shrouded booms and specific turf sprayers that low impact and cover the ground pretty quickly. So we're doing that in a safe method, but we also see this as another niche market that just gives the client something that that they can say 5% of our constituency or 10% is done through an environmentally friendly process.
Yeah. Well, that leads me kind of to my next question is, we've looking into a crystal ball, I guess, and talking about weed control, how do you see the foreseeable future? Are we looking at robotic spraying or with organic material, or are we just going to make adjustments to the practices that we're currently doing now? It's one of the probably the $1 million question, I guess, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's I think robotic or GPS guided is certainly come more in agriculture than the turf. It's really hard for us to be, and there's a lot of robotic mowing equipment out there at the moment, so it's been out there for a while, but when you're in a public place, you still have to have someone there making sure it's doing what it's supposed to do anyway, so you're not really saving on a labour component. But certainly for us, GPS tracking and monitoring is really crucial in our spray records, because obviously the local government want to know what you've put on, how you put on, that you haven't missed any, that it hasn't drifted in. So for us, GPS is a big one, and that's only going to get bigger around how we track our spraying movements and make sure that they're done with almost zero overlap, or as much as we can to make sure we're not going over areas twice. How do I see it? There are organic chemicals that are testing the market at the moment, but are not necessarily making huge inroads. So, I think there'll always be development towards the environmental, because the market's there, and with the density of population, there's only going to get more and more pressure on, because councillors, like it or not, they're voted in by ratepayers, and at some stage they have to bow to the demand of those ratepayers, and the ratepayers are rightly or wrongly saying that we don't want chemicals in our backyard. Yeah. No, that's certainly the message that we hear as well out there. And it's an interesting point you make, that the commentary back from people out there in the wider world is that it is a negative one, isn't it? Like, I do see, we hear a lot of operators, they have people taking photos of them, they have people writing down regos of tractors and whatnot, and it is a growing issue out there, but I think if we can all be on the front foot, I guess, as an industry, look to be, taking on some new technology and answering some of these, not the critics, but, just being transparent, I guess. Yeah, and the turf industry does a lot of research in some of our chemicals we spray are basically non-scheduled, but if you gave someone a bottle and said, this is what we're spraying, they'd just run for the hills, but they have no idea of what they're picking up, how it affects them. A lot of them go, my dog's been sick for 2 days since he walked on your park the day after you sprayed it. And it's like, we watered it in straight after, there's nothing there. It's an education thing, certainly. Maybe in broadacre agriculture, but certainly in turf, in high density areas. One of the things we're falling short on, I believe, is educating people around the chemistry of chemicals and how good it is nowadays because it's been developed for this market.
Yep.
And we tank mix a lot where we're doing a lot of pre-emergents, which are watered in, so they give 6 months pre-emergent control. And once it's watered in straight after we spray, there's no effect, to the public. But people just are unaware of that, so they and we even cop a lot of angst as soon as they see a boom spray. We could be putting out wetting agent, and they go, "What?" And we're saying we're putting out this wetting agent. They go, "What's that?"
Yeah.
And I think we can do that a lot better as an industry, is actually get on the front foot and go, this is how good we are doing things, because everyone's doing a lot of good things in certainly the turf management, and it doesn't matter if you're Syngenta Bay or where you buy your chemicals from. There's a lot of research, and that would be for ag as well, around how can we maximise efficiency of product and incorporation into the soil, or into the plant if it's a controlling fungicide, etc.
No, most certainly, Cam. I certainly agree with you there. Hey, Cam, look, thanks for joining us on the podcast today. TurfcareWA, where can we find you?
So TurfcareWA are based in Malaga, but we're on the website, turfcarewa.com.au.
Yep.
And we do commercial. We don't go into so much the home lawn, although we are looking at having an arm, Positively Green, which is providing commercial grade products and I suppose the premium range of fertiliser into home lawns, because we do get a lot of questions from home lawn owners, and there's groups like Lawn Addicts and Lawn Porn and all that guys post on social media all their lawns, how proud they are of striping them up for the weekend and having their barbie on them. And so we've thought about and are about to release a lot of our premium range fertilisers that we use, and we're just going to have them packaged for the domestic market, because that's the question we continue to ask: where can I get this chemical or fertiliser or wetting agent from? So so stay tuned, head to the website, and we'll have some of that for the residential. But so we go throughout the state. We do a little bit of country shires work, but predominantly metro.
It's quite exciting. You have a good following as well, so I can appreciate that products like that will work for you guys, because I think that the brand name and your brand name as well has a strong following, so I can certainly see the benefit in that. So congratulations, and that's really good. And look, once again, thanks for joining us on the podcast. We had a blast.
No, it's been very good to have a chat. I probably talk too much, but thanks.
No, it's all good. We like the long episodes as well. It's always good to have one. No, thanks, Cam. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure.